Hi, and welcome to another edition of Gin with Gwynne. I'm Oliver Gwynne, and this is where we talk about philosophy, data, and marketing. This week, I asked for your questions in the chat last week, and Emilia Bond said, do I have any tips for exhibitions? And so that's what we're going to be talking about. If you would like me to talk about something, put it in the comments, and I shall get on it. So what are my tips for exhibitions? I sat down and wrote them down. It turned out I had quite a lot. I've done a fair few exhibitions in my time. Most people, when they go into an exhibition, they do this math that is, if one person becomes a customer, will it pay for the whole exhibition? And normally it sort of will, or you need one or two people. And so it makes it worthwhile, depending what kind of business you're in. But don't rely on people coming to your stand and they happen to need what you want, and then you convert them. Make sure it's a success beforehand. This is the most important thing, I think, with exhibitions. So pre-book meetings with prospective clients, with current clients, even people that are cold contacts. You can say, hey, I'm going to be at this thing, or you're going to be there, and maybe they can pop by the stand. Or even if they're not going to be there, it's another opportunity if they're interested to book a meeting with your business. So pre-book meetings, make sure the success happens regardless of who turns up to your stand. In terms of having those meetings, I always like to get a cafe nearby. Sometimes the exhibitor lounge is okay, but exhibitions can be very noisy, loud places. There's a lot going on, so it's nice to have a bit of time with somebody away from them, a bit more of a casual environment, informal environment. And so, especially if you're at a large exhibition, like Web Summit or something where it's just crazy and there's too much going on, if anything, having one destination where your team can be that is nearby, but sort of out the way, where people can easily find you is really, really good. And you can just basically sit there all day and have meeting after meeting after meeting. Also think about sort of pubs and restaurants afterwards where you can have those more informal conversations with people. Because, as I say, when people are at the show, they're there to see specific things. And so maybe they've got more time afterwards. Maybe they're staying over. And so they're quite happy for some company. Next is, if you are out the office, be out the office. Don't be on the stand answering emails, doing a little bit of work in the break room, this kind of stuff. You are there to do a job, which is to man a stand, to be the focal point of your business normally, and sometimes to also talk. So be out the office because, one, if you're answering work emails, often you're not doing a great job anyway because it's on the fly and you're stood up and you're not in a normal environment for doing that. And two, obviously, you don't want people to see you working on the stand. So just take the time off, give yourself a break, even if it's a really slow exhibition and you're like, oh, I need to make the most of my time. Be present there. Other things to do with the stand, so no eating on the stand, no mobile phones on the stand. I go to quite a few exhibitions looking at data tour providers, and yeah, if I see somebody on the stand with their phone in the hand, sat there, I'm just like, I don't really want to go and talk to you and disturb you, and I'm not that interested. So, I do think it puts people off there. I'm also shocked in 2024 how often people still employ like pretty girls or attractive men that they don't work for the company. They're just literally there to attract people into the stand, and then they refer you on to a salesperson that knows much more. Like, are we not past that stage yet? There's still some industries where this is really common, and maybe certainly more male orientated businesses. I still find that happens, and I'm just flabbergasted. You want people on the stand that know your business really well. You don't want people there that don't understand what you do. And that comes on to my next point. No matter how long your sales team has been with you, no matter how well they might know what you sell, brief them really well. Make sure you go over your latest sales points, your pricing, questions that people might ask, how to address people and how to keep those conversations going, and what our next step will look like. And a lot of exhibitions, they have like a QR code, or they have some way of scanning a badge, and you get the person's information there if they want to give you that. But I would really recommend that pen and paper are really king, because sometimes those systems don't work. Sometimes people don't want to do that, or they tear their badge or whatever it is. And so having a pen and paper and writing down what you talked about is really key. I also really like having a WhatsApp group. So a group WhatsApp group for the event where you can just brain dump things. But again, coming back to my earlier point, don't be on your phone. So go away from the stand, jot down any points into that group, and then you can come back to that. And make sure you've got things like mints, maybe some deodorant, depending on where it is, just so that your team is comfortable and you've got nice breath and all that kind of thing. The next point is sort of counterintuitive, but it's with exhibitions, I think it's generally better that there are competition there, that you have a few different tool providers or companies or whatever it is that are your competition. You might wonder why. So typically, if I'm going to an exhibition and I know I can compare and contrast three different tool providers, that's a lot more interesting to me. It's a better use of my time as somebody who is there to buy something versus if there's only one company that does something that I'm interested in. And so actually having your competition there is better for you. Means more people will likely to come so that they can speak to you and your competition. And yes, you're vying for the sort of same people at the same time. But I think when you are the only business of your type in an exhibition, it's less likely people will do that. And your argument is, well, I'm going to soak up all those inquiries if they're there. But I think that it doesn't quite work that way in reality. People are there to normally see a lot of different providers in one place, and obviously see some talks and shows and that kind of thing. In terms of messaging, make sure that you've got one clear message. And make sure that it's more obvious than maybe it's normal. Everybody has this sort of um, poetic phrase about, we provide insights if you're in the market research industry or something like that. But for an exhibition, you need to make it more simple. People walking past your stand, maybe they're only going to do one circuit of the hall and that's it. So you have to make it really, really obvious what you do in a sentence. And so I think for an exhibition, it's worth maybe going slightly away from your normal brand positioning just to make it simpler and easier so that people can literally look at that and go, oh, I need that thing that you do. What I've seen work quite well is literally where you have a banner or you have something and it just says, bing, 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 this is what we do. And people go, oh, yeah, this is something that I'm interested in. If you are a complicated business, you've got multiple different service offerings, try and focus on one area. It's really tempting to put all the different things that you do and have a long list of things that you can sort of sell in the hope that the more things that you can sell, the more likely it is that you'll get somebody that's attracted to that. But that just doesn't work. It's confusing to people. They won't give such amount of time to your business. Often it means that on your stand, you're having to use sort of 4 colors and 4 sections and all this kind of thing. You really want to make it as simple as possible. Grab people's attention. Pictures of people work good on stands, especially faces. People are drawn to people's faces. So keep your messaging really simple, make it really obvious what you do, focus on 1 or 2 things rather than making it complicated because you don't have the time. You want to think of it like you're designing a billboard or something. You've got 30 seconds as somebody's driving past your billboard. What are you going to say to them? In terms of stuff on the stand, I know a lot of people came away from the thinking of providing anything. They were like, oh, it's wasteful, not good for the environment. I'm not really in that camp, to be honest. I think what you shouldn't do is give away tats, branded mouse pads. Do people still use mouse pads? I don't know. Crap, basically, that is just going to be thrown away. Nobody wants it. But I do think that books, like useful books of information, leaflets are still useful. And that should be it, because you can source books and leaflets sustainably. I'm not sure that I would give too much things away, but I definitely wouldn't have everything just on digital because you've got to imagine that you're going to a hall. Maybe you're going to speak to 20 different businesses. You're going to have 20 different emails, or you're going to sit down and go through all of them one by one. Probably not. But it's a lot easier if you have something physical, just to leaf through it, mark anything down, share it with your team on a meeting when you get back. So I still think there's a lot of value in physical things. I think they can still be friendly to the environment. But what we shouldn't do is give away tat that's just going to be thrown away afterwards. If you're going to give people a bag to put all your information in, make sure you have the biggest bag because then everybody else will have to put the other bags in your bag. And so it's free advertising for yourselves at the exhibition. And last but not least, what's the most important thing? It's following up. Following up is really difficult at an exhibition because there are so many other competition that are also following up in the same timeline. One is make sure you follow up the very next day, just a very casual general message to everyone to say, hey, thanks for seeing us, because it's probably still going to take a little bit of time to align your notes, to assign a salesperson, blah, blah, blah. So follow up this next day with a generic message to say, nice to meet you. Here's the links. And we'll follow up with more information next week, maybe. Add everyone on LinkedIn so that if they don't check their email or if they've used a personal email for the registration, you've then got an opportunity then to talk to them on LinkedIn. But most importantly is have a follow-up plan. So have 5 stages that you're going to do. Categorize people into most important and say, okay, here's my chain of 5 things that I'm going to say over the course of maybe a year, even leading up to the next event. I'm going to send one email immediately that is personalized. I'm going to follow up with that again. And then if I don't get any replies from that, they're going to go on an automated chain of 2 or 3 that will actually lead to either them being on the newsletter, asking if they're going to go next year, which saves you time on the first thing, which is pre-booking meetings, or just determining that they're not that interested in my business and I should get rid of them. Because people are at an exhibition, they're more open to giving you their details, perhaps. So you have to be a little bit more scrupulous with the amount of time that you spend chasing them. Obviously, the thing that happens is that you get somebody from a big name business and you think it's definitely worth chasing them. And so maybe you ignore the smaller things that are more likely to convert. And so try and treat people a little bit more equally and determine when people are not interested. Those are my tips for exhibiting. Do you have any? Please share them below. And if you've got any questions for next week, be sure to leave them in the comments. Thanks very much and tune in next week.